What's up, y'all? It's your boy Vinny, the villain. Thank you so much for checking out the Council of Trolls, guys. Hey, I'm just gonna say this right ahead right now. If you like this, like it, subscribe it, please. I need this really bad. I gotta have this. This has to work. It just has to work for me. So I just came across this recent interview that Shawn Layden from Sony Computer Entertainment, SEIC, ABCD, EFG just did with GameInformer, and it was a really interesting interview because there were a lot of things that he touched on where, you know, he spoke about E3, he spoke about VR, he spoke about just kind of the future of the PlayStation brand. And what I like about it so much is a lot of people want to talk about how, you know, Sony got really cocky when they, you know, they did the PlayStation 2 and then they released the PlayStation 3 and they got really cocky, so, you know, they fucked up. And now that Sony is doing so well with the PS4, people assume that they're going to follow, you know, the same mistakes that they've made in the past. But this interview that Sexy Shawn, like, I want to take a note here. Look at Shawn right now. He's clean shaven. Okay, I'm kind of digging it. You know, I like the whole daddy look he had going on with the beard and stuff. But right now, this clean shaven Shawn, shit, I'm digging it a lot, Shawn. Keep it up, man. You're making all the blood in my body rush to you know where. You know, you got the fupa going on, you got the eyebrow game on point. I'm liking it, loving it, baby. Come on, keep it up for me. Come on, I need this. So, Shawn really addresses a kind of range of topics in this interview, and I wanted to go over a few quotes of what he was talking about, you know, what I thought about it, what I liked about it. And essentially, if you ask me, which I know everybody is wanting to know what my opinion is on it, this really just shows a confident side of Sony and not this sort of cocky side that people are so worried about them, you know, kind of going about and, you know, fucking up again. It was a really honest interview, if you ask me, where they're acknowledging the mistakes that they've made, which is great. It's a great thing to see. If you actually have this company publicly talking about, you know, errors that they make or things that they're not so good at, then I think as a consumer, as a fan of that brand or product, you know, why wouldn't you be excited for the future? So let's go over a few examples of here, you know, some things that he talked about that really stood out to me. So right off the bat, what I really want to go into is how he talked about essentially backwards compatibility. And he says, quote, "One of the terrible circumstances of our gaming industry is that every time we launch a new console technology, we sort of put the last generation to bed." Excuse me. But PS Now is a way where all of a sudden you can bring back to life an entire PS3 catalog through your PS4. Through the streaming technology. It's kind of new, kind of different. You see what that would suggest for the future. So I think that was a good experiment. Maybe we didn't explain it enough to really illustrate why it should be important to you. And you know, they really didn't do a good job with this generation, I feel like, as a Sony fan, to make me want PS Now. Sure, it sounded interesting when they first released it, but I remember doing a free trial and how poor it was, and the library really didn't attract me. I'm really not that into playing last-gen games. Last-gen is basically last-gen for me. Naturally, there are going to be some games that I do want to revisit, but overall, I'm not, you know, that caught up in, you know, playing last-generation games. An interesting part about this quote for me is he says, "So you see what this could suggest for the future," and I feel as if that really means one of two things. Either one, which is the big one, is that the PS5 or whatever they're going to call it is going to be backwards compatible, and that's something I feel like it's expected at this point. You have Microsoft already doing that with the Xbox. Clearly, they're going to go into the next generation with that, and that's going to be a pretty huge selling point for a lot of fans. Now, maybe Sony won't go so far as to make the next PlayStation console entirely backwards compatible insofar as it can play any PlayStation game or virtually any, you know, PlayStation game, and maybe they'll give the next gen console that sort of last, you know, that old gen support via PlayStation Now. Maybe, I really feel like what they will do and what they should do bare minimum is make, you know, PS4 games backwards compatible on the PS5. I have a lot of games on my PlayStation 4. Most of them I own physically because I'm an old head with it. And I would be, less inclined to hop on the next PlayStation console if I couldn't even transfer my gaming library over to that console. I've already parted ways with PS3 games, PS2 games, PS1 games, so if those things don't carry over to the next platform, that's really not that big of a deal for me, and if I really want those things, I can get it through the PS Now service. The second thing that this could mean is simply that they're going to be doing a complete overhaul of improvement with PS Now, which, they've kind of already done that by allowing you to actually download some games so you don't have to stream it and rely on a good internet connection, and that's a great move in the right direction. He also addressed some concerns that people really have with the whole wave of virtual reality. Everybody is so eager nowadays, especially in recent time. This is kind of the mindset or mentality everyone has with stuff, I feel like, is that they want things now, and they want improvements back to back to back. And unfortunately, that's just not how things really work in real life, at least with most things when you want genuine, deep improvement on stuff. So Sexy Shawn goes on to say, and I quote, "You look at PSVR right now, none of us are going to be able to imagine what it will look like 10 years from now. But the change will be that dramatic. You can't get to 5.0 unless you do 1.0. It's just the nature of the thing. Maybe we could have reduced some wires a bit, I will say that." And that's one of those things where I felt like they're being honest, right? They're acknowledging something that people take issue with, and that would at least imply to one listening that they're going to have that fixed next time around. And that's a great thing. And it's really no secret that Sony isn't big on multiplayer games or game as a service, and that's not really been something that they've really ever been known for. I wouldn't say that they didn't have any games that were sufficient in those categories. I love Killzone 2, for example, but overall, they're really not known for it like a company such as Microsoft being known for. And so in this interview, Shawn goes on to address it. As far as games as service and esports or recurring revenue models or whatever, if we can do something interesting and meaningful in those areas, we'll do it. If we were going to partner with another team in some capacity to deliver, again, something interesting and meaningful, we'll be there and we'll do it. It's not that we're not interested in those areas, it's just an area we haven't historically performed well. But if there are new teams that have something we can associate with them, then certainly. We want to push boundaries in all different areas of gaming. It's important for us to do that. And that's a really promising thing for me to see, because we all know that Sony knocks the ball out of the freaking park on the narrative side of things. And it wasn't even just this generation which demonstrated it, but really any previous generation they've gone to demonstrate that. And once again, he's not saying anything concrete here. He's not saying, hey, we have this new studio who's focusing on a multiplayer-driven game or, something of that nature. But I feel as if he's definitely kind of alluding to stuff like that. He's talking about, if, we had a team who, we could align with on these things and we could deliver on this vision and stuff, then yeah, we would be down for it. And they have to do something new for next gen and really capitalize on that. You can't go, this long without actually having a good, strong core like multiplayer foundation and expect to do well, back to back as far as the generations are concerned. Sexy Shawn also goes on to speak about this whole E3 debacle, right? Because everyone's freaking out about it. Oh, Sony's not going to be there. What's going to happen to E3? E3's already kind of been dying down a bit. Is this the end for E3? Is Sony getting too cocky? Do they think they don't need E3 to really succeed? And that's really kind of the big point of this video that I wanted to make with this interview, is that Sony really isn't showing anything to show that they're being cocky. Nothing to show that they're being cocky. I really just think it shows that they're being confident. They know what they're strong at, and they know what they're not so strong at and where they need those improvements. And seeing that Sony is being reserved the way they are, with E3 and not trying to set fans' expectations, so high up in the air that they let everybody down, really goes to show that they're in tune with what people want and they don't want to mess up the run that they have going on. Shawn goes on to say This year, coming to 2019, I'll be honest, we just didn't have a new story to tell. And when Sony rings the bell for everyone to come around, they have an expectation for something that is completely new and amazing. We looked at that lineup and we can probably only give fans a lot of updates on things they already know. So how does this work for us? And he's right. We essentially know how this generation is going to end with PlayStation, and that's not a bad thing when you consider the games that they actually have lined up to end this generation off of. We're talking a handful of games, and they're all blockbusters. They're all going to be mega hits, right? And, you know, we're talking potentially 2 or 3 of these are going to be, like, considered some of the best games of this entire generation. What a better way to end a generation than coming out with one of the best games of that generation. And Shawn doesn't sweep things under the rug. He acknowledges kind of this perception that people have as far as, you know, maybe E3 kind of, you know, coming to an end, and how people interpreted Sony pulling out of E3 2019 as a sign that, you know, it's coming to an end. But he gives examples of other gaming companies, you know, such as Xbox kind of, you know, shrinking their presence at least, you know, overall, and how people use those as examples of things ending. And he's just kind of saying, you know, well, you know, other companies have, you know, kind of taken a step back from E3, and that didn't mean that, you know, they're not a part of it anymore or don't care about it anymore. They just, you know, didn't feel like making that much of an investment in this sort of platform was really a good idea. You know, it's kind of an arbitrary date, you know, some date in June, right? So instead of Sony kind of, you know, adhering to something that everyone else is adhering to, you know, they're just doing their own thing. And I find it interesting too, because Shawn doesn't just leave it at that. He actually talks about what he would like to see out of E3 and what he feels like is really going to allow that platform to grow and, you know, just to continue to thrive and not die off like everyone is worried about. He goes on to say, so I would like to see E3 turn into more of a festival of gaming. It's not this company against that company and that company against this company. We're not in our hideaways on our platforms. We're just doorways into the same room full of gamers. That's my future hope for E3. Just because PlayStation is not at E3 2019 doesn't mean we won't be there in 2020. And, you know, what a high road for Shawn to take. He knows, fucking killing the game. Then on top of it, Phil, we're on the back of your neck. Nintendo guy, we're on the back of your neck, all right? And it's good that he has this kind of, you know, hippie thing, you know, we're all together, blah, blah, blah. Because, Shawn, we know deep down, you can't stand them. I can't stand them. I don't like them being on stage with you. You think I like them being on stage with you at the Video Game Awards? They probably smelled. You know, I know they smelled. They look like they smell. Phil, with his sausage fingers, yeah, you know what? His fupa doesn't have anything on your fupa, Shawn. Don't let him hold you down, baby. So overall, it just really makes me happy to see that Shawn is addressing stuff like this. And maybe he's addressed some things like this in the past, and, you know, I just really didn't pay attention to it. But, you know, for a year where presumably Sony might be pretty quiet as far as, you know, dropping news and revealing this game and revealing that game, it's good to hear this, because I feel like this is the quiet before the storm, before, you know, next generation. And Sony is very much so attuned to, you know, what they need to focus on it and what they need to work on. And there's been a whole lot of talk as far as, you know, Xbox, because, you know, they're buying all these gaming studios and stuff like that. And I feel like from a sort of shallow perspective, it looks like, you know, Xbox is about to knock it out the park next gen, which, you know, I really hope they do well. I really feel like I wasted money, you know, on the Xbox. And, you know, I tried their exclusive, you know, it just wasn't hitting for me. And I kept on getting Halo Gears Forza. I don't want that. No one wants that. I'm done with Halo Gears Forza. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, just like to say, you know, Sony's being too cocky, they're being too cocky, you know. They had a guy playing, you know, a 22-string instrument at E3, and they had a really bad pacing. You know, this is them being cocky, and, you know, they ran out of gas, and, you know, I really don't see it that way. Like, I just don't, and this interview really goes to show that Sony is listening. They know what they do well. They're going to continue to do it well. You know, they acknowledge where they're not doing so well at. And I know Xbox has done that too, and that's good to hear. I'm sure fans of Xbox were happy to hear, you know, maybe feel like acknowledge how they need to improve in the gaming area and stuff like that. And you should. some of these companies can be, really hard-headed and stubborn and not, listen to their community. But these guys are actually listening to their community. And me knowing, and I think all you guys knowing too, how good of a job Sony can do on stuff when they actually apply themselves, to hear stuff like this, you should be confident. There's no reason to think that, going into next gen, right, that Xbox is just about to, whoop some ass and, take names like it's nothing. Like, that's not about what's to happen. Like, you really think Sony's just gonna, like, drop the ball like that because, they're too cocky and confident? We sold 80+ million units. Like, you think no, they're not gonna stop that. They're not gonna stop that. So this is really just kind of I think a sign of things to come. There's no need to think Sony is being too cocky. Simply just being confident, guys. I think every Sony fan out there should be happy that this interview took place, and what Shawn was acknowledging is what he was acknowledging. I got to get it adapted to the clean-shaven look, like I said. Shawn, you're looking good. You're looking good, man. I was digging the daddy look. But you're looking good. All right, you look a lot better than Phil. You look like better than Nintendo guy. You're looking good, brother. You're looking good. Well, all right, guys. Yeah, that pretty much does it for this video. Please make a comment at the bottom. Little comment, exclamation point. I don't know, something. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe, guys. We're trying to get out as much content to you as we can, guys. We're new to this, you know what I'm saying? Just keep an eye out for more videos. We got a couple more videos coming up in this week alone. We're going to try to give you a lot of content, try to cover as much as we can, as soon as we can. We appreciate the views, everybody. Just try to help us grow this channel. We love you guys so much. There might be a few of you I don't like. Still share, still subscribe. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.